What's up, everyone? This is Vicente.
And this is Izzy.
And welcome back to the IV Podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, we are done covering the Spider-Man franchise, all 10 Spider-Man movies. And yes, we're including the Spider-Verse movies because they are Spider-Man movies. You know, anyone can be Spider-Man. And now we're doing our own personal, official Spider-Man ranking. And Izzy, anything you got to say before we get into these ranking? Like, how are your feelings on this franchise that we covered and that we love so dearly?
I love this franchise, and I'm sad that it's over. That like we won't be able to cover this franchise for a while because we already covered it. But I'm happy we're able to share our opinions with you guys and our feelings of these movies. And I hope you guys have enjoyed them over the past few weeks.
Oh yeah, and then when the new Spider-Verse movie comes out and when Tom Holland gets his trilogy, best believe we'll be covering those.
Oh yeah.
But stay tuned for the end of the episode because we're going to announce the last two franchises we're doing for season 1, not the end of our podcast, but the end of season 1. So stay tuned for the end. And without further ado, let's get into these rankings. So starting off with number 10, it's unfortunate, but it's The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I do love this movie. I loved it even before No Way Home, but this movie is held back with, and it had a lot of potential. We get a lot of great Spider-Man moments that are like in the comics when he's acting like Spider-Man, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, whether it was him walking a kid home or just being the average Joe or just, you know, putting on a fireman helmet and putting out Electro with the fireman hose with all the other firefighters. But this movie's held back due to like the number of villains, Sony wanting a Spider-Man universe like the MCU, and then just so much studio interference, and Andrew Garfield and Marcwebb were just very unhappy.
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing that really drags this movie down to 10 for me is the way that they decided to end the movie open-ended.
It's stupid, you know, and, you know, I honestly think this movie should have just been Electro. Electro should have been the main villain, and then you could set up Harry Osborn. If you really want him as Green Goblin, set him up in the third movie. But the biggest failure for this movie will always be killing off Gwen Stacy so early. Emma Stone is a talented actress. I'd want her for at least one more movie and then do a faithful adaptation of the death of Gwen Stacy. But besides all that, just this movie was a clusterfuck. It tried to set up too many spin-offs and all these future sequels. It just never had time to breathe on its own and be a movie like it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it was just all too much done in the time that it had in the movie. So I think that's just what brought it down for me.
Yeah, but you know, No Way Home kind of redeemed it, and it's sad that I'm happy that Amazing Spider-Man 2 is getting some type of love, but it sucks back then because a lot of people hated this movie, and if you like that movie, you'd be crucified on the internet. So for Amazing Spider-Man 2, I'm going to give it a strong 6.9 out of 10.
For me, I think I'd give it a strong 7 looking back.
Okay, that's fair enough. Alright, and number 9 on our ranking list is Spider-Man 3. And just like Amazing Spider-Man 2, this movie had a lot of potential, but studio interference and too many villains. You know, I get they were building up Harry Osborn to be the Green Goblin in the Raimi trilogy, and it was going to work out good. And I like the introduction of Sandman, but I just don't like the way they treat Venom as a side character.
Yeah, they had, what, 3 villains?
Yeah, 3 villains, and it's not even that, it's just because the thing is, I don't like the retcon of Sandman killing Uncle Ben. I think that's stupid. It kind of undermines a lot of the original movie. It's kind of like what Scream 3 did when it's revealed that Roman was behind Maureen Prescott's death instead of Billy and Stu. It's like fucking with the original, and as Sidney Prescott says, you don't ever mess with the original. You know, and then for a big story like the symbiote storyline, should have been a 2-parter. And it's like I said, if Sony wanted Venom in this trilogy, in this franchise, Raimi should have said, okay, fine, let me do the black suit in Spider-Man 3 Part 1, and then Part 2 of Spider-Man 3 will be all-out Venom versus Spider-Man. And you could have had the movie Part 1 to where Spider-Man accidentally kills Harry Osborn and Sandman, and he realizes what he's done. And then the ending could be so dark and fucked up. And the post-credit scene is Venom literally finding Eddie at the church as we see in Spider-Man 3. And then Part 2 is just all-out Spider-Man and Venom. And then, I'm sorry, I just don't like Mary Jane in Spider-Man 3. I still think she is the worst in this movie when it comes to being a gold digger and just being very confusing.
Yeah, she's very confusing in this one, and I agree. I think doing a two-parter would have done this movie so many more favors and probably would have been so much more favorable to the audience, and plus we would have been able to, like, really focus on the symbiote.
Yeah.
And it would have been, I think that would have been the better play.
And I will give credit where credit's due. Sam Raimi did treat it with love. You know, he could have just been like, oh, you know, F this, you know, and make Venom a complete bitch, you know. But still, you can tell he didn't want to do Venom. I think he said he did plan to do Venom. He just wanted to get the classic Spider-Man villains that he loved. And, you know, and it's unfortunate that because of the reception of Spider-Man 3, we never got that Spider-Man 4. But here's hoping we get Spider-Man 4 one day.
Yes.
All right, and now number 8 on our ranking list, The Amazing Spider-Man. And let me just say this, I've always loved Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, as I said when we covered this franchise. He's very underrated, but it's just this Peter Parker I can't get behind in this movie. He's just too much of a pretty boy. And Peter Parker in the comics is a handsome dude. You know, he's not a bad looking dude, but at the same time, he's kind of like a social outcast. He's not like a ladies' man until he gets, you know, the spider powers. But even then, I just felt like they got Peter Parker a little bit wrong. But as far as Spider-Man, oh, he's good, you know, with his quips and his joking. I like the Lizard as a villain and Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. To me, she's the best live action love interest for Spider-Man. But, you know, as I said in our negatives when it came to this movie, I just don't like the Lizard's master plan and the whole mystery behind Peter Parker's parents. It's stupid. It literally goes nowhere, and we never get a revelation to who killed Uncle Ben, and Peter never finds out, or he finds out in his universe, but us as an audience never finds out, so that leaves like a gaping hole.
Yeah, I think the whole thing with the parents is what also really drags this down movie too. It's so weird to add it and then like never go forward with it, and then to add it even to the second, we'll just stop with that.
Yeah, you know, and it's like I said, you know, but I just don't like the Uncle Ben in this movie.
Yeah.
Aunt May's, you know, hit or miss. But I do like the Flash Thompson in this movie. He acts like a real bully. He's probably my favorite version of Flash Thompson, even more than the one from the MCU and the one from the Raimi trilogy. But yeah, if I had to give The Amazing Spider-Man a number out of 10, I give it like a strong 7.2 out of 10.
7.2?
Yeah, it's still a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's good. I love this too. I love that Andrew Garfield is so passionate about the character of Spider-Man. You know, but it's just being held back by like all these restraints, you know, and just dumb writing. And I think people were just so caught up in Tobey Maguire so that this movie never really got the love and praise it deserves. Yeah,
I agree. I think it deserved more love, but it was still a good movie.
Yeah, and so we're done with that. Like I said, 7.2 out of 10 for me. Izzy, what would you rank it?
I think I'd give it a solid 7.5. I really enjoyed it for my being the first introductions. I had my problems, yes, but I still enjoyed it.
And number 7 on our ranking list is Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I do appreciate the different locations of New York that it's in Europe, and we get more interaction with the whole cast, because what I love about the MCU Spider-Man trilogy is the whole cast of characters, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. I love Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury in this movie. He plays a good role. You know, we get to see Spider-Man, you know, kind of be his own hero in some way. And I love Mysterio's illusions. But my biggest thing that holds this movie back a lot too is that we get too many Tony Stark references and just legacy. And I know, I get it. You know, that was in this movie and this franchise for the MCU, Tony Stark is Peter Parker's mentor, but I really wish he just would have stopped it after Endgame. That's just my personal opinion, because it gets annoying, you know. And then we find out, oh, that Quentin Beck was a former Stark employee, and it's like that, to me, that's like jumping the shark. That's kind of dumb. And then Peter makes his own suit with Stark technology when it should have been him making his own suit out of gadgets that, I mean, I guess like gadgets he found, but even then, I get what they're trying to go for, but I just don't like the many Tony Stark connections in this movie. It kind of drains it down for me.
Yeah, I gotta agree. It was one thing that they did it in the first movie, in Homecoming, but
it made sense.
It made sense, but in this movie, it just... It doesn't make sense anymore to keep connecting him with Tony Stark, because he needs to be his own person, because you think even after the events of Endgame, he would be his own person more. But
Yeah, and I will appreciate that this movie did bring back J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, and we got a badass new suit for Spider-Man. But like I said, this movie is just held back by the legacy of Tony Stark when I just want Spider-Man to be his own hero. Yeah. And I do love this movie. I do. But it's that Tony Stark legacy held back that I just don't like, if you get what I mean. But I can forgive this movie because No Way Home rectifies all those mistakes.
Yep.
So for No Way Home, I'll give it an 8.1 out of 10. Or Far From Home. Far From Home, 8.1 out of 10.
I would give, probably for me, I think I'd give it a solid 8. I think it's a good movie. It's an enjoyable movie. It gives you a different side of seeing Spider-Man outside of the United States and, like, out of the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good movie.
Oh, yeah. And number 7 on our ranking list is going to be Spider-Man Homecoming. The movie that truly gave us the Spider-Man in the MCU. Now, I know his introduction was in Civil War, but for me, I will say that this was his true introduction.
Yeah.
That we got to learn more about this Peter Parker. And I will say, one of my biggest negatives about the Homecoming trilogy and just the MCU Spider-Man as a whole is that we never get a mention of Uncle Ben in some capacity, because Uncle Ben is important to the Spider-Man mythos, you know, whether it's Uncle Benjamin, Uncle Ben, you know, Aaron Davis. There's always been that uncle type of figure in Spider-Man's life, and I do appreciate them kind of doing that with Aunt May in this whole trilogy, you know, but it always kind of bothered me, you know, because when I think of Spider-Man, I think of Uncle Ben, too. But I do like Homecoming. I think it's a fun, you know, origin story for Peter Parker in the MCU, and it feels like a high school. And what I will love about the Spider-Man trilogy in the MCU is that it feels like an 80s type of teen comedy high school vibe, and I love it, and I do appreciate that. I'll give it to Jonwatts. I tip my hat off to him, and Tom Holland, there's no one more perfect they could have found when it came to Tom Holland.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. Tom Holland Spider-Man has been probably one of the best choices for the MCU.
Yeah, and then Michael Keaton as a Vulture in this movie was just perfect. And his Stark connection, not one I can get behind, not one I agree with, because there are people who don't like Tony Stark in the MCU. You know, and besides that, we get the Shocker, a version of the Shocker, the Thinker, and it's just nothing but fun. I would say Homecoming's a fun movie, but I will say a negative is that it's the start of the Iron Boy Jr. jokes, and it does get annoying, but the whole cast just kind of fits perfectly well with the modern high school era, while having that classic 80s feel, and the soundtrack for Homecoming, I just love.
I gotta agree.
Yeah, and I would give Homecoming a strong 8.5 out of 10. I like it. It's a fun movie. It's a cute, fun movie.
Yep, I'm gonna go with 8.5 too. It's a good movie.
Oh, yeah. And number 5 on our ranking list is the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. This was the first movie I remember seeing in the theaters as a kid. I loved it. That day, my parents bought me a Spider-Man plushie, and I brought it to the theaters and watched it. And I have nothing but good and fun memories with this movie. This is a movie I will always hold close to my heart, because it's the one I remember as a kid, and it's the one I shared with my parents. And Tobey Maguire, I love every Spider-Man the same, no matter who's under the mask. But when it comes to Tobey Maguire, he's always going to be my number one dude. He's always going to be Spider-Man to me. Because when I read a Spider-Man comic, all I hear is his voice. And when I think of Spider-Man, I think of Tobey Maguire first before I think of Andrew Garfield and, you know, Tom Holland. But this movie's good. But this movie is also held back because it hasn't really aged as well. You know, when the Green Goblin attacks a parade, you know, there's cheesy lines where he's like, I surrender, you know, to the cops. It's fun, cheesy 2000 stuff. So it kind of holds it back. It has, some of the dialogue hasn't aged well. But William Dafoe as the Green Goblin is easily the MVP of this movie. And he says a quote to Spider-Man, which I love, when he's all like, eventually they'll hate you, so why bother trying to save them? Some underlines the context of that quote. And it kind of adds to society too today, where we can do all these good things, but at the same time, people will hate us if we fuck up once. And so this is something I'll always appreciate from Sam Raimi, is giving us quotes that have meaning to reality and just messages behind his movies.
Yeah, I watched this movie with Vicente for the first time, and after we watched it for the first time,
when we first started dating. Yeah.
I loved this version of it because I feel like his Peter, other than Tom Holland's, I feel like his Peter Parker was played so well. I think that's my favorite out of Tobey Maguire's, is his Peter Parker.
Because he feels like a nerd.
Yeah.
because Tobey Maguire is a handsome dude, you know, but he has that dorkish, nerdy look. He feels like a nerd and talks like a nerd. No disrespect to Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. He did what they could. But when it comes to Peter Parker, I do envision Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
You know, and James Franco, whatever you think of James Franco, because he has a lot of controversy right now. We're not going to talk about that. Whatever you think of him, you can't admit that he was a damn good Harry Osborn. He was fucking terrifying.
Yeah, he was. I really liked Harry Osborn.
And, you know, Kirsten Dunst, she was a lot of people's first crushes. You know, the beautiful Mary Jane. And Uncle Ben in this movie was perfect.
Yeah, Uncle Ben, he's my favorite Uncle Ben.
And Aunt May, everyone loves Aunt May in this movie. Everyone wishes he had an Aunt May. So I'm going to sound a little biased, but if I had to rank this movie, I give it a good 9 out of 10. I love this movie. Granted, like I said, cheesy dialogue kind of holds this movie back, but it's still a fun movie, and I would say it's in the top 5 best superhero origin film of all time. Top 5 at least. I would put it at number 2 in the top 5.
Yeah, I gotta agree. And for me, I think I'd give this movie a solid 9 too. It's so good, it's so original, it's such a good origin story for Spider-Man.
Alright, number 4 on our ranking list is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, when this movie got announced in the beginning, and when it was revealed that Miles Morales was going to be the lead character, some people loved it, and I was one of those people. But then there's a good majority that didn't want it because they're like, oh, this is Marvel going woke. When they don't understand that Miles Morales has always been around since, I would say, I think maybe 2005 in the Ultimate Marvel comics. But the animation in this movie is fucking awesome. I would say that this is the best animated movie of all time. Like, just the different universes, different looks. Like, this movie could have been cheap and just have every universe look the same, but to go out and make every universe unique in their own way, especially in Across the Spiderverse, which we'll talk about in a bit, was this awesome. And Miles Morales, everyone loves Miles. I'm glad that Miles Morales is getting the love he deserves, and we get the badass villain Aaron Davis, aka the Prowler, and he's always been one of at least my top 10 favorite Spidey villains.
Yeah, for me, I wasn't worried of the Miles Morales thing, but I did not watch this movie right away, and I regret it because I love it. The animation in this movie is amazing. It's probably like my favorite parts of this.
And as a Latino man myself, I'm glad that we get to see, you know, Miles' African American culture, but we get to see his Latino culture too. And I love that we hear him speak in Spanish, and just I appreciate that Miles Morales is getting a lot of love. One of the things I don't like about this movie though is Kingpin as a villain, and it's actually because Liev Schreiber is a very good actor. He's intimidating. He was Sabretooth and X-Men Origins Wolverine, but I feel like his villain just wasn't really intimidating. He only was really there when the plot needed it. He wasn't like this overarching villain, which I really wish he was. It was more of his henchmen that were like the main villains, like Dr. Octavius, she's a female in this universe, Scorpion, Tombstone, and Green Goblin. And I love the soundtrack for this movie too. The soundtrack is fucking awesome. You know, everyone knows the Sunflower song. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite songs, but the soundtrack is good. And I do have to agree with Kingpin. He seems like he was only there when needed, and he really only like cared about getting his family, but it was the henchmen that really made this movie scary with the villain.
Yeah, and this movie is just shot beautifully, and I just love it. And like I said, I think it took them 2 years to make this movie.
Yeah, it took them a long time.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And Christopher Miller and Phil Miller and Christopher Lord, I think I probably fucked that up. You know, thank you for giving us the character Miles Morales, bringing him to the big screen. Granted, it's just an animated form, and I can't wait till he makes his live action debut. It's going to be awesome. I give Into the Spider-Verse a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I this is a 9.5 for me. It is so good.
It's a good movie. Alright, and now we're getting to our final 3, and let's just say this. As much as we love all Spider-Man movies, every Spider-Man movie, and I appreciate all of them, our top 3 are just like our fucking go-to. They are awesome. And Izzy, you ready to get into it?
Yep.
Alright, and number 3 on our ranking list is going to be Spider-Man No Way Home. I love this movie. I cried during this movie when Aunt May died. I cried when I saw Tobey Maguire return. I was happy when Andrew Garfield returned. But this movie is such a love letter to every Spider-Man fan, and I felt like this movie brought every Tobey, Andrew, and Tom Holland fan together. Because for many years, people argued, oh, who's the best Spider-Man? And it's fun to have little debates, but I've also seen people take it so fucking seriously, and it's scary. It really is. And you know, people were just bitching about the dumbest shit, but this movie was a love letter to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, we got to see Doc Ock return, Green Goblin return, Electro, Sandman, Lizard, and Tom Holland is at his best when it comes to this movie.
Yeah, this movie was like the best like match made in heaven when trying to combine all the Spider-Man movies, and they did such a good job and executed it so well. They made sure that Andrew and Tobey didn't feel like cameos, that they were like intertwined into the story and had a purpose, not to just be there as like, oh hey,
it wasn't fan service, you know. And we get Doctor Strange, Benedict Cumberbatch, perfect as Doctor Strange as always. And this movie had so many emotions, and this is the movie that truly makes Tom Holland the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and I will forever love that. I have no negatives with this movie, and I'm excited to see what comes to the future when it comes to Tom Holland. But Izzy, anything else you want to say about this movie?
I just want to say this is such a good movie. Watching this movie makes me excited for the future, even though it's probably going to be dark. I'm excited.
Yeah, you know, just to Kevin Feige, everyone at Marvel, thank you for bringing all the Spider-Mans together. I appreciate it. For this one, I give it a 9.8 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I would probably give it a 9.8 or even a 9.9. It is so good. I have no negatives with it. It's just that good. All
right, and number 2 on our ranking list, and this is going to be a lot of controversial for people, but understand that this was a very hard thing to do. But after many times thinking about it, our number 2 is going to be Spider-Man 2. And everyone knows how much I love this movie. It perfectly captures the human side of Peter Parker. It captures everything so beautifully when it comes to Doc Ock being a fallen villain, the love triangle between Mary Jane, Jameson, and Peter Parker. Everything works so perfectly in this movie. The only negative really is Mary Jane is just very confusing in this movie. It's the starting of her gold digger truly her gold digger status basically.
Yeah.
But I just love this movie. I love the simplicity of it, and we're going to show you a clip right now when Peter goes and saves that little girl in the burning building. This is what I love about this movie. Peter knows that he can die saving this girl because he doesn't have his powers. But it's more the fact that he was always meant to be a hero, whether or not he got bit by the spider. And that's who Peter Parker is. He's a hero in us. He's Spider-Man with or without the powers. And for people that wonder why he lost his powers, it's because he wasn't taking care of himself physically and emotionally. And it introduces more of the Parker luck, and I love that. You know, wherever good happens to Spider-Man is bad for Peter, but when something good happens for Peter, it's bad for Spider-Man. And just, Sam Raimi, you did an amazing job capturing the human moments with Doc Ock, with everyone in this movie, including Peter Parker, and it was very hard to put this movie at number 2, because Izzy and everyone else knows how much I love this movie. Yeah,
this movie is my favorite Tobey Maguire movie, and I'm happy that it's at number 2. And you guys know how much as I love Doc Ock, and no, it's not just number 2 for that, but I love seeing the human side of Peter Parker, because I feel that's what we don't see in any of the other Spider-Man movies.
Or just in any hero movie in general. We really don't see a human side.
So just seeing that from this Spider-Man, from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, just makes that movie so much better, because it's something we can relate to. We can see in everyday life. So we don't have to be like, put ourselves in their position. Because most of those instances, we have been in those same positions as Peter Parker. Yeah,
and then what I love about this movie is that it has that classic Raimi horror vibe when Doc Ock, we're going to show the clip right now, when Doc Ock's at the hospital, his tentacles are just attacking everyone. Holy crap, it's intense. But Izzy knows how much this movie means to me. Just, you know, because every day as humans, we struggle financially, and there's not a problem. Everyone struggles, you know, or we have, like, just things that bother us, and that's why I love him. Izzy knows that this is my comfort movie. This is a movie I watch when I'm just feeling down, because I relate to this version of Peter Parker. I relate to Peter Parker in the comics when it comes to just, like, normal stuff. And Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire, thank you for giving me a movie I will always hold dear to my heart. Alright, and number 1 on our ranking list, ladies and gentlemen, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, why did I put this movie above Spider-Man 2? Let me just say this. Me and Izzy have discussed it. As much as we love Spider-Man 2, Across the Spider-Verse literally takes what was so good about Spider-Man 2 in its own unique way and fucking maximizes it to the fullest potential. We get a human side of Miles Morales, to him trying to balance his school life, his relationship with his parents, trying to make it to his dad's important events, and we get introduced to the whole Spider Society, every different spider people coming from Spider-Gwen, Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, and then my favorite Spectacular Spider-Man, and we get cameos from Tobey Maguire through archive footage, Andrew Garfield through archive footage, and one of my favorite cameos, Childish Gambino as the Prowler, and it's confirmed that he's the Prowler from the MCU that we see in Homecoming, and that's just fucking awesome. And we get many other cool cameos in this movie for different Spider people, you know, and I just love it.
Yeah, I think that's got to be my favorite cameo that's non-Spider-Man. But this movie, I think that's what I love most about this movie, is that we get to see the struggles and the balances that Miles has to go through in order to balance Spider-Man from being Miles Morales and his school life and his friends and just the whole Spider Society.
Yeah, and then the spy, me and Izzy, I had this fear in the beginning of the movie, and I leaned over to Izzy and told her, I feel like the spy's just going to be like a typical villain of the week joke, but holy shit, he becomes powerful towards the end.
Yeah, I was not expecting him to be as big, but it just shows how little in our mind, oh, this is going to be some other villain, but no, it surprises us so
He's going
much.
to cause destruction, mayhem, and everything. And I love we finally get to see which universe, the spider that bit Miles in the first movie, we get to see what universe it's from. And then we see that Miles Morales in that universe is the Prowler. And rumor has it is that he's an anti-hero in that universe, that version of Miles Morales. And in his universe, where the spider came from, is that the Sinistersix took over. And so I'm very excited about that. But just this movie, animation is at its best, you know. And like I said, they take the time to make every universe look so unique. Every spider people look so unique in their own spider universe. Another cameo I love is Insomniac game Spider-Man from the PlayStation games. I fucking loved it. Izzy knows I was hyped for that scene. And you know, with Spider-Man 2 coming out this October, I love it. But yeah, I feel like this is another love letter to all Spider-Man fans, because we get to see every version of Spider-Man 2. And you know, I got to see one of my favorite ones, Scarlet Spider. Izzy, who was one of your favorite Spider people you got to see?
I don't have anything like personally I was looking forward to. I just love seeing all the different versions, like Dino Spider-Man.
T-Rex Spider-Man.
Yeah, T-Rex Spider-Man.
Yeah, God, this movie's good. And I loved it. To me, this is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, this is a 10 out of 10. I would like to say on record that no, this isn't our number one movie because it's a new movie. This is our number one movie because of just how good the quality is and how good the story was written.
Yeah, and we talked about it before we made the ranking videos. And like I said, it was very hard not to put Spider-Man 2 at number 1, but I appreciate what this movie did for the character of Miles Morales and just expanding on his character. You know, because he could have just made it cheap and make Miles, like, all perfect, but he's still struggling as Spider-Man.
Yep.
And Oscar Isaac as Miguel O'Hara, another Latino hero I love, Spider-Man 2099, he was a fucking menace. This man wanted to beat Miles' ass hella badly.
Yeah, I was not expecting him to be that sinister because we never see Spider-Mans like that. We always see him as, like, happy-go-lucky. He was just the opposite.
Yeah, you know, Spider-Gwen, it's a love-hate relationship with that character. I felt like she played Miles way too much, but I get it for the story. But yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. Izzy, what would you rate it?
For me, it's a 10 out of 10. Or 11 out of 10. It's that good.
Yeah, it's good. Alright, now that we're done with our Spider-Man ranking, for those that stood this long, we're going to talk about the future of our podcast. Now, we're not ending it. Don't worry.
No.
So, in 3, 2, 1. Here's the future schedule for our podcast. So starting next week, I'm very excited. We get to combine our love for horror and comics. And you know what franchise we're going to cover? Starting next week, we're going to cover the Blade trilogy, starting with Blade 1. I love Wesley Snipes as Blade. I love that trilogy. I even love Blade Trinity to a degree. You know, Ryan Reynolds was good in that movie too. But yeah, it's a combination of horror and comics that we love so much. And I talked about it with Izzy, and she's very excited to cover it too.
Yeah, I think the Blade trilogy will be a really fun one to cover because of just how different it is. Because you're basically combining superheroes with horror, and I think it's just going to be a great one for us to cover.
Yeah, and Wesley Snipes, like I said, Wesley Snipes is a fucking badass in that trilogy. All right, and after we're done with the Blade trilogy, we're going to end season 1. So season 1's going to end on September 18th, unfortunately. But we're going to come back somewhere in November. We'll keep you guys updated.
Yep.
And we'll start out with Star Wars when we come back for season 2. But how we're going to end season 1, we're going to end it with the franchise that me and Izzy hold dear and love with all of our hearts. And what started my love for horror and what made Izzy love these movies too. Mm-hmm. And that franchise is going to be the Scream franchise, baby. Hey. I'm very excited to do the Scream franchise. It's been hard. Ty, my friend Ty, what's up, Ty? He knows I've been planning this for a while, so he kind of got like a little insider scoop. So thank you for not telling anyone else, Ty. But yeah, I'm very excited to do the Scream franchise. Just to end season 1 with a franchise that me and her love and hold dear to our hearts is just fucking awesome. And we're really going to bring it to you guys. Like, I think it's the perfect way to end season 1.
Yeah, I gotta agree. This is going to be such a fun franchise to cover, especially right before our wedding. This is like...
oh my god,
this is probably our favorite horror franchise for us, like, together.
Yeah, it's that franchise we can just rewatch anytime. We're out to her, hey, put on Scream 2. Yeah. Hey, put on Scream 3. You know, what's funny is that before we started filming, she prefers Scream 4 over Scream 3. I prefer Scream 3 over Scream 4. So that's going to be a fun little debate when we get to those movies.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's going to do it for our episode. We hope you enjoyed our ranking. We hope you're excited for, you know, our future schedule announcement and how we're going to end season 1. And as always, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone that watches. Me and Izzy love you guys. The people that interact with us on our TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram. We love you all. So as always... be good people, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next episode. Peace out, everyone.
Bye, guys.